Hello everyone, it's Kelly Cooper and welcome to another Facebook Live video. Today I'll be talking about intellectual versus emotional understanding. This is a very important distinction that we need to make. Personal growth in general, but conscious creation, energy work in particular. Because as many of you have seen, your whole life you've been operating from the space of your mind. Everything is intellect, rational, logical thought. All of that has its place in this world for getting certain things done. But when it comes to spirituality, the inner world, the heart, all of that, inner transformation, improving our lives and all of that world is not, that way of thinking really doesn't mix with that world. That's not the space that we're going to be operating from. And what happens is we take in all of this information and we start to intellectually understand certain things to be true. We learn about energy and things feel intuitively right to us. And we're like, yeah, I kind of get why I need to think this way, why I need to feel that way. I kind of understand energy. Yeah, I get it, right? So we're in our mind, and that's the first place we start, right? Is you take in the information through the mind. So that's okay. The mind is going to be involved as long as you're alive. You're not going to be able to totally function independent of your mind. But if you keep doing this work just from your mind, you're probably not going to see the changes you want to see in your life because your reality is not created from the realm of intellect. It doesn't mean shit what you know. It's a great first step, but it's what you feel. Your reality is not created based on what you intellectually understand and intellectually accept. It's based on what you emotionally understand and emotionally accept. Because it's the emotion, that energetic charge of your emotion, that's what's creating your reality. That's what's drawing your experiences to you. That's creating like an energetic signature, and whatever's dominant, you're just getting stuff back that reflects it back to you. So if you keep saying, well, I know, where's my stuff? I understand this, I get that, I accept this, I believe that. Okay, again, great first step. But what's happening emotionally? Do you emotionally accept these things to be true? Do you emotionally understand these things to be true? Like a good example is right now, all of your pain is not caused by your circumstances or what happened in the past or what's happening right now. Your mind has layered a story on top of that experience. That's what feels bad. The story your mind is telling about what happened when you were a kid, or what happened 10 years ago, or what happened in your marriage, or what this person did, the story about how they treated you, the story about your financial trouble, the story about your single, all that stuff, right? And then you start to intellectually understand, oh yeah, my mind is just telling some fucked up story. I get that that's not any sort of objective fact. And then we kind of just leave it at there. We think the intellectual acceptance and understanding somehow means we've transformed. And again, it's a great first step. But these emotions, the feelings born of these stories, intellectually understanding they're not true, that's probably not going to be enough to actually unload the feeling and make the feelings go away. So there's this gap between intellectual and emotional understanding and acceptance much of the time. We're not aware of this gap. And again, because we're so used to doing everything from the level of the mind, we think that intellectual understanding and acceptance somehow automatically translate to emotional transformation, energetic transformation. And again, it could get the ball rolling on that because you start with the mind and that's where it all starts. But actually just doing this work from the mind and thinking that will take care of the feelings, and you're going to think your way out of your negative feelings, you're going to think your way out of your negative beliefs, and you're going to use like logical reasoning to try to change what's happening inside. You're probably seeing, some of you might have seen already, it doesn't really work. And again, because we're so used to doing everything from the level of the mind, we're never really checking in with our feelings. We learn all this stuff about the law of attraction and conscious creation and all this universal laws and all this spiritual wisdom, and it's wonderful. And again, great first start. But then we think that, again, just because we know these things in our mind, somehow that translates to we're different now. Just because we know it, we think we've maybe changed, and we really haven't changed. We think our energy is different, but it's really not different. And we're not checking in with what's happening emotionally. Because again, we mistake, hi, oh my God, Dara, how are you? My love, it's one of my old college roommates. So, my fellow Scorpio. So yeah, right, that's what's going on. And we are missing the ball with what's happening emotionally. And we don't really want to check in emotionally because we don't like what's there. We like to think we can all do it from the level of our mind, but a lot of you have probably seen it. It doesn't really work. So that's why you always have to check in emotionally, because what's happening emotionally is a very different world than what's happening in your mind. And a lot of things that seem obvious to you, that, oh, obviously I shouldn't feel that way. Obviously I know this or that. You feel that way. Oh, oh, Dara, you're the best, right? So you have to see, because again, what's happening in the world of emotion, it can be kind of fucked up and weird down there. You think intellectually, you understand you shouldn't feel a certain way because that's childish, or that's how a child would think, and you're an adult now and you're past that because you're in all this stuff, or I've done so much work on this issue, I know I shouldn't feel this way. And then, but again, what's happening emotionally, you're still having that response that you might have had when you were 10 years old to something that your father did to you. You still feel like that wounded, abandoned child, even though you're 40. Intellectually, you might have done a lot of work on an issue, but again, you might have been doing it largely from the mind, and emotionally, you're still stuck in those emotions. You haven't really processed them or worked through them in any way. That's why being honest with how you feel is going to be the conscious creator's best friend, your honesty. Because if you can't be honest about how you're feeling, then you can't transform what needs to be transformed, because you won't even acknowledge it's a problem in the first place. Like any other aspect of life, energy work isn't any different. You can't solve problems when you don't even admit there's a problem in the first place. And then we just go into denial about how we feel, and we keep saying, I know, I know, I know, I believe, I believe, I believe. And yet intellectually you might be, but emotionally you're not there yet. And it's okay that you're not there yet. All the shit that's going on emotionally, it's really not the problem we make it out to be. We all have our shit. We all have conditioning from our parents, our religion, our community, things that happened to us when we were a kid, things that happened to all these things, right? And it created these fucked up beliefs and these messed up ways of looking at ourselves, all of this pain. That's par for the course. That's part of being a human. That's not a problem. The only problem will be is when you go within and you start seeing all of this stuff, but then you choose not to deal with it because it's too uncomfortable, you don't want to deal with it, and especially from a law of attraction, conscious creation perspective, all you want to do is try to change your energy to change the outside and just to get stuff you don't have, and that's what the whole journey becomes about. And the law of attraction, right, it's about energy, your inner world, and somehow we think that we can make all of these changes without having to really look at our inner world that much. And again, intellectually, we understand, like, no, that makes zero sense, but emotionally that's what we're doing, because we want to believe it on that level, because we don't want to have to look at any of this stuff. So again, your shit is not your problem. The problem will be when you start getting a better idea of the shit, the contents of the shit, where the shit is coming from, but then you're just like, oh no, thank you, I don't want to do that. Let me just find a new program, a new technique, let me find some new law of attraction hack that I can somehow change the outside, because to my mind, if I change the outside, I'll feel better. And if I just get the boyfriend, if I get the money, if I lose the weight, if I get the different job, if I get this or I get that, then I'll feel better, and then I won't have to deal with my feelings, because it will be taken care of by the external manifestation. And what some of you might have seen is there's too much shit there, and you can't change your energy even in surface ways to see something different, or you're seeing certain changes but you're not feeling any better. So you see the outside's not the problem anyway. So yeah, intellectual versus emotional understanding, these are very, very different things. And a lot of times closing the gap between the two will involve, you still have to process the feelings born of all this stuff that you intellectually understand might not be true anymore, but emotionally, on an emotional level, you're still buying into it. And the emotional understanding really can't really start to take root until you unload some of that emotion. Because if all the emotion is still there, all the emotion born of these stories that, again, you might have intellectually now rejected and be like, yeah, I understand that's not true. My mind was just telling an untrue story. I see how these things are not true. Again, great start, but it's not going to bring you all the way. And the pain and all of the stuff born of these stories, the intellectual understanding is not really taking care of that. So when you unload some of the emotion and you're honest about how you're feeling, you're honest about how you're focusing, you're honest about what you really believe and how much you've actually transformed on an inner level, and you unload some of that, that's when you start closing the gap between the two. Because when the pain is no longer dominating everything, you can start seeing things as they really are. And all of this intellectual understanding can now trickle down into emotional understanding, because all of this shit's not getting in the way of it anymore. Because as long as the shit's still there, you're still going to want to try to avoid dealing with it. You see what happens. Everything you do becomes about just trying to make your pain be undisturbed, not make it go away or heal it, just get stuff that it'll go back dormant again so you don't have to deal with it. So if you are struggling right now with the law of attraction and your conscious creation and you're getting your stuff or whatever, and you feel like you have a good intellectual grasp of everything, yeah, again, awesome, great first step. But emotionally, what's going on emotionally? On an emotional level, do you really believe you're a powerful creator? On an emotional level, do you really believe you're worthy and deserving? On an emotional level, have you rejected the negative things you think about yourself based on your own assessment or things people might have said to you throughout your life and told you you're this way, you're that way, this is the type of person you are, you're this, you're that? And again, when we check in emotionally, we're usually seeing like, oh yeah, emotionally, I haven't. Oh, yes, Courtney. Yeah, that's what it is. That's all the mind cares about, pain being dormant. It doesn't care about transforming it. It doesn't care about getting at the roots of what caused it. It's just like, I don't like how it feels. This circumstance, I don't like how it makes me feel. If we change this circumstance, then I don't have to feel these feelings anymore. I don't like how it feels when I don't have money. I don't like how it feels being single. I don't like what it makes me think about myself. I don't like how it makes me think about what's going to happen in my life circumstances, how it's going to affect my day-to-day life. Yeah, so let me just get the boyfriend. Let me get the money. Let me get the this. Let me get the that. And then naturally, these feelings will go away because now I've solved the problem, right? That's all your mind cares about is pain going dormant, not actually doing anything about it. So that's why another reason too why it doesn't want the emotion, it doesn't want you, it has no interest in you going inside. It has no use for you doing any of that. It's just like, no, we'll just figure out how to change the outside according to the law of attraction. If you think positive, if you do this, you do that, you'll get this thing, you'll be able to change your reality. And then again, these feelings will go away because we'll get something that will make them go away. So your mind is all about the external focus. That's why we're so obsessed with tools and techniques and trying to learn all of that stuff, because we want to think manifest things in action because it feels good to think it's an action, because then if we try hard enough, or eventually we'll crack the code somehow, and then we'll be able to get everything we want by somehow finding a way to manipulate energy and manipulate the outside. But as you see, you can't manipulate the outside. You have zero control over what happens outside. You only have control over what's happening inside, which brings me back to, right, an intellectual versus emotional understanding. If you can't be honest about what's happening inside, all of your control, for lack of a better word, it's you give it, you cede it, you give it up to the mind base. You're giving it up to your mind basically, because your mind's like, no, I don't have any interest in you going there. Healing, happiness, that's bells and whistles. I don't care about that. I don't care about you getting the best versions of what you're capable of. I just want a good enough version, so again, I get these feelings go back dormant and they don't get rustled up again, and I don't have to deal with them. So yeah, when you can't be honest about what's happening, and you can't make the distinction between intellectual and emotional understanding, your true source of power, which is your energy, you can't take advantage of that, if you want to say, for lack of a better way of phrasing it, because by not looking within and not seeing what's there, you can't transform it in the ways that will be of benefit to your life and help you get all of the stuff your mind wants so badly. Your mind doesn't understand how energy works. Your mind thinks denying your feelings, just doing everything from an intellectual level will be sufficient, because that's what you've been doing your whole life, and your mind tricks you into thinking we understand all of this stuff, so it must mean that you've changed. But it doesn't mean that you've changed at all. You can be an expert on the law of attraction, other universal laws, spirituality. You can know all of this stuff inside out, all the different life philosophies. You can know it all. But as far as living it, that's a very different thing. And we can only start to really live it if we're actually, this information is actually informing our feelings and informing how we move through the world. And that's the step a lot of us are missing. And it seems so obvious, like, oh, that would be so important to live it. But again, we're so locked into the mind, and we think just intellectually understanding all of this, that's all we need to do to change. And you see, it doesn't work, because again, great first step, the intellectual understanding, that's what opens the door. It gets the ball rolling on the change. But all of the emotion that came from these stories and all the stuff you believed all your life that's been very painful, all that emotion, your intellect probably won't take care of that. And again, your reality is not created from your intellect. It's created from the world of emotion. So if you're not checking in emotionally and seeing what's there, again, all this power you have, this control you have, which is within, that's the only thing you truly control, you can't take advantage of that way of operating, because your energy is not really going to change in the ways that would allow you to see these things that you want to see in your life, allow you to be this person that you want to be in whatever way, whatever changes you want to make to your habits, your behavior, your tendencies, whatever that are kind of getting in the way of your happiness and positive change. All of it, that's where it is. So if you can't look in there and see what's happening, and it could be a hard pill to swallow, because a lot of us, right, we spent all this time learning about all of these things, and again, we might be a fucking expert on everything. We know in law of attraction inside out, all these other, right? And we think, yeah, I'm being it, I'm living this, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, like I'm not even close. And again, hard pill to swallow. But that you haven't made these changes and all of that, yeah, it might be frustrating and upsetting, but again, that's not the problem. That all of that's self-created. All of the story, we created all of that ourselves in our own mind, right? So we have the power to change it. These thoughts and feelings are not these completely separate entities from you that have come and invaded your life, and now you have to figure out how to get rid of them, and they're crafty and tricking you and evading you. It's you, it's part of you, so you can change it. The only problem will be, again, if you don't want to admit to all of this and you want to go back into denial, or keep convincing yourself you believe and feel things you really don't, or again, remain very externally focused on the tools and techniques, holding all of these outside resources responsible for your transformation. That's another thing we do too with all of this, with the intellectual understanding. Intellect is very locked into the mind, the world of action. In our mind, it's all about action. So that's another way that we kind of bypass the emotional transformation. We make it all about action and trying to activate the positive vibes that we think will get us what we want, and that has value, but the energetic space most of us are in, that energy we're activating does not stand a chance against the energy we're contending with now, because we haven't done anything about it. We haven't unloaded any of it. It's still very dominant. We're still trying to manifest from a space of, let me just get this thing so the feelings go away. We're not really trying to activate positive energy with all of that work. We're trying to more make negative feelings go away that we think are getting in the way of getting our stuff. And trying to get rid of negative energy and trying to cultivate positive energy are two very different things. They're very different results. They'll be very different journeys, and they will feel very differently. And always trying to get rid of the pain and get the stuff to get rid of the pain, and just try to get rid of our pain. If that's our journey, it's a very painful journey, and you just create more pain. That's the irony of pain minimization. Your mind is all about minimizing your pain, but that journey, that making that the top of mind focus of everything you do is, let me get rid of this pain. And it's okay, you want to get rid of your pain. There's no reason that you should suffer with it. Again, it's created in our own mind, and we can get rid of it. But when it's the focus, and everything you do is not about transformation and healing and positivity and becoming happier, healthier emotionally and complete and whatever, when it's all about, I don't like how I feel, what can I do to get rid of these feelings? It just creates more pain. And the mind doesn't understand the world of energy. It doesn't understand how this works against its goals, because that energy keeps you in the energy of everything that you don't want. So you can only continue to manifest a reality where things are basically the same as they are now, because what created it, that dominant energy, it's still the same. It hasn't gone anywhere. And your mind wants to convince you that just because you intellectually understand something's true, that means you've changed. Because again, we're so used to doing everything from the mind, we kind of just stop at intellectual understanding, and then we're never checking in emotionally with, like, emotionally, do I feel this stuff to be true? Emotionally, have I changed in any way? Have I emotionally accepted these spiritual laws, or this thing or that thing I think is not true, and I actually feel, I don't feel it to be true anymore, and I feel this better, more positive thing to be true? Oh yeah, no, I don't at all. Okay, that's not a problem. A little disappointing. I thought I've done all this work on myself. It's a little disheartening to think I really haven't come as far. Again, you can let yourself have all these reactions, and again, that the shit is still there, that's not the problem. It will only be a problem if you don't want to deal with it, because it's too hard or too uncomfortable, or you can't be bothered, and your mind just wants to be like, no, you get to feel bad until something changes. You get to keep feeling this way, and you don't have to change how you feel because you don't like what's happening. You're having an emotional response that's totally justified and totally valid, and you get to keep feeling that way until you get your stuff. And your mind makes a good case for holding on to these feelings, for not dealing with them, because it has no use for you doing any of that. It doesn't care. It doesn't care if you're happy. It just cares about getting your stuff. It doesn't care that the beliefs you have are painful to you and they hold you back. your mind created them, it's very attached to them, and it's very offended at the suggestion that how you think or feel is wrong. And again, that these things are painful for you and fuck up your life, it's no consequence to your mind. That doesn't matter to it, because in the pain minimization mode, changing all of that, it doesn't see it as necessary. All it sees is, let's just try to figure a way to change the outside, and then we'll be fine. All this inner work, no, sorry. Not only does it have no use for it, it's a direct threat to its agenda, because as you make that inner transformation and you're no longer operating from a space of always just trying to make your pain go away, and I don't like how I feel, what can I do to make these feelings go away, and you're constantly ruminating on the past and projecting into the future, your mind, that's where all your mind's power is. And when you start dealing with your shit, you stop doing all of that stuff. And if you stop doing all that stuff and stop operating from that space, your mind is no longer has this power over you, because you see its dysfunction and you're like, I'm not going to listen to you. Living in the present moment, your mind doesn't want you to do that. In the present moment, everything's all good. You don't need anything. Nothing's a problem. You're not thinking about the future. You're not ruminating about the past. Again, your mind has no power there. So not only does it not serve its agenda, it's a direct threat to it. So you have to be aware of how the mind is functioning. And again, it's going to want to keep you in the world of intellect, and it's not going to want to let you go inside, because it thinks somehow that's going to slow things down by you admitting that all these things are there. But they're there, and what you intellectually understand, the universe is not responding to your intellectual understanding, it's responding to your emotion. So again, your mind thinks denying all of this serves a purpose and somehow benefits you, but it doesn't. Again, it doesn't understand how energy works, and you have to understand it doesn't understand. And the more you understand how little your mind understands about what's actually happening and how reality actually is created, it gets easier to stop listening to it. It gets easier to make these admissions about what's really happening inside. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna get going, but check in with that today. Hi Elena, how are you? Is all of your intellectual understanding, how far has it trickled down into emotional understanding? Energetically, emotionally, have you really shifted in any way that would lend itself to seeing these changes you want to see in your life? And again, if you still have shit there, it's not a problem. Don't freak out about it. It's only going to be a problem if you keep deciding you don't want to deal with it. Because again, you created it, you can change it. It's not a problem. The only problem is when we deny it. Humans, I'm very impressed with the lengths we go to avoid dealing with our feelings. It's an A for effort there. It's very impressive what we do. We're funny like that, right? So yeah, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day or night. Happy manifesting. And yeah, that's it. Bye-bye.